Today's video, I'm just going to have a bit of fun really. The latest videos have been so heavy with the not terrible, but the issues with the Guzzi gearbox and stuff like that. While I was sorting that out, I had to get the trophy box out to find some old bearings. So let's have a quick look in the trophy box. What do they call it? The offerings to the racing god. And see if there's any lessons learned. Let's have a look at them. Always a good idea to have a look at some lessons learned, see what mistakes you made and what happened and how to avoid them. Might be some use to someone, I don't know. Okay, here it is. It's not a massive box, but some guns in here, I think. Don't know, what can we find first? Right, so this, right, let's just get that out. And a valve, right. That is a sight that most Ducati owners do not want to say. That's a shredded belt. In fact, here we go. Look at that one. I think that belt might be a little bit. Ducati Panther belt. That's what happens when you over tighten your belt. So what you have to remember when you're doing these Ducati engines, if you've ever do the belt yourself, it's not a difficult job. It's actually quite straightforward, very easy to time. But the belts are remarkably slack. I don't know what the newer motors are like, but the older engines, the Panther engines and stuff, they grow so much when they get hot, they expand. So that belt has got to be loose, and that's another reason why you should never rev them when they're cold. You need to warm that engine up thoroughly. If you're in the UK where it's freezing all the time, that might take a while to get that motor hot. But them belts need to be cold. I mean, the engine needs to be warm, and then belts need to be really slack when the engine's cold. When you do check the tension, I always check the tension warm. So when I fit the belts now, I put a 6mm gap on them, 6mm on the back belt, 5mm gap on the front belt. I leave the covers off, I warm the engine up, let it tick over, give it 10 minutes, run the motor up, check the tension again. The belts mustn't be tight. This is what happens. The belt snaps, and I don't know if you can see that valve, but that is a very bent valve. Okay, what's next? I think that is, they are a mixture of GPZ 550 and GT 550 pistons. Right, so what I did was, when I rebuilt my GPZ 550 and the motor was some ludicrous mileage on it, I rebuilt it. I put the GT cams in by mistake, leaving the GPZ carb settings. It's an important thing, but you don't realise at the time. But carb settings, pilot jets, main jet sizes are all related to the tune of the engine. The actual capacity of the engine doesn't make a huge amount of difference. You can change the capacity of an engine, and often the tuning of the carburetors doesn't change. What does affect the tune of carburetors is the tune of the engine, which is the cam timing and the electrical timing, the spark timing, and that's what was different on this engine, and that's what made the carburation go funny. And well, it didn't make the carburation go funny, it made the carburation was clearly wrong, so it had the wrong carbs on it, and that was the problem. So it just started to hold pistons. Obviously running very weak. It repeatedly held pistons. I think there's piles of them in here. Maybe I chucked them all away. There's another one. I got sick of it in the end and disposed of the bike. Important things to remember there: if you do change the tune of an engine or the timing, carb settings are going to change, but the capacity doesn't. When you think about it, carbs sort of deal with different volumes of air. That's what they do. So they deliver a ratio of fuel. It doesn't really matter what that volume is, it just delivers the right ratio. So changing the capacity of engine actually doesn't really make that much difference. I guess it can, but in my experience it doesn't. Anyway, whatever. Right, what's next? Tax discs. Okay, so once upon a time we used to have to buy these paper things and peel them out carefully and put them on your bike, and just to prove that you'd paid money to the government for no reason whatsoever. Just another form of taxation, really. Absolutely stupid. People would steal them, take them off. I never used to put them on. After a week riding around in Britain, this would be a soggy, horrible mess, completely unreadable. NJO 50W, Ducati, and I think that's a GPZ 551. What a ridiculous thing. Don't stick them on anymore. Of course you still have to pay lots and lots of tax to ride your bike, but there you go. Right, so these, give a bit of space here. These are, let's have another look in here, and this one as well. Oh, there we go. There's some. These are Motor Guzzi gearbox bearings. These big ones are the output ones. I always swap these horrible plastic caged, focus on that, for a high loading one. It actually loads better. The plastic cage ones, they can be okay, but as a bike grows old, the UJ might get a bit worn and it starts to vibrate, and that just puts a lot of load on that bearing. That UJ is hanging out there on the shaft, and it just loads that bearing up and it breaks it. If you swap these for high loaded metal cage type, much stronger, and you can actually cope with a bit of misalignment, and they're much happier. These individual ones, now I think this one and this one that's completely shattered, all the elements are missing, all the balls are missing out of it, actually came out of a Cali, and that California had been ridden with the clutch push rod adjusted right up. So what was happening is it was spinning up the clutch push rod all the time. What happens then is that the thrust bearing then fails, and you start getting heat, and actually what had happened is the push rod had actually friction welded itself into the clutch because it had been spinning, because the thrust bearing had failed. Once that happens, there's so much heat generated that all the bearings in the case of the transmission all start to walk out, because the aluminium case expands and all the bearings then become loose and they all start to walk out. Then just have gearbox Armageddon, as the gearbox just completely just self-destructs itself, all because you just didn't adjust the clutch correctly. So it's absolutely vital that Motor Guzzi's that you adjust that clutch arm correctly. It's got to have free play in it. If you run that free play out of there, it's a world of hurt. I did rebuild this gearbox for the guy, and it was quite expensive. There was quite a lot of bearings had to go in. There was some damage. I think fifth gear, which is on the end of the shaft, had been damaged. Needed a new fifth gear. What a horrible mess. Listen kids, adjust your clutch and your Guzzi. There's another GPZ one. Let's see what else is in here. I wonder what this big monster's out of. I think this is quite clearly, can you see that there? The rings failed, and it looks like he's had a bit of a partial seizure on the piston. Was my Le Mans, and when I bought the Le Mans it was nearly 20 years old and had 6,000 miles on the clock, so it had never been used. That was the problem with it, really. Here she is, and she'd never ever been used, really. I'd used it and didn't like it. Obviously I had a stuck ring, a bad oil or whatever, partial seizure, and that was that, really. At only 6,000 miles. So the lesson here is that, you know, if you buy an older low mileage bike, it's not often the thing to do. You know, you can even have problems like that. The Guzzi you would think would be actually pretty resistant to this, because it doesn't have cast iron bores. It's got aluminium plated bores, and at the time this was actually quite a cheap replacement. I think I got a new barrel, piston and rings for something like 150 quid, and they just went straight on. It was a very easy fix. Of course, working on the Guzzi is very easy. It's just actually not that many bolts to remove the head. A very simple job, so wasn't a problem. It's been alright since. Now the other side still has got this the old original piston in, so that obviously was okay. The bike's at about 90,000 miles now, so can't really complain, really. I think they're a little bit more expensive now, but I do like the plated bores. They're much better. I think that's it, really. Just more Guzzi bearings, bent valves, another bent valve, possibly a panther valve, judging by the colours at the top. Another Cali bearing, completely disintegrated. That's it really. Hope it's been a bit of fun.